Good afternoon. Hopefully we've got some people joining. Just give it a quick minute and then we will get cracking. Fab. Okay, wicked. Thank you all for joining. We're delighted to be here this afternoon. We have got just a couple of slides from myself, and I'm with my colleague Shannon, who I'll hand over in just a second to introduce herself as well. And we will be doing a quick Q&A, so you can get a feel of what life is like at RSM for a graduate as well. So Shannon, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so good afternoon everyone, hope you're all doing well. My name's Shannon. I'm currently based in the RSM Newcastle office. I joined as a graduate in August 2022 and I'm working currently in the accounting and business advisory as an assistant. This sits within consulting, but if this doesn't make any sense to you, I'm sure when Farah gets into the slides, it'll make a whole lot more sense. And I'll just be here for any questions you might have that pop up. So feel free to use that question box and add them in as we're going along.
Absolutely, that's great. Thank you, Shannon. Cool. Okay, so hopefully you can all see my screen and my slides. We will get to it. So Shannon's obviously introduced herself and we'll bring her back in a little bit later on. So who am I? So my name is Farah Beveridge. Again, delighted to be here this afternoon with you all. And I'm the National Early Careers Manager here at RSM. I've been with the firm for a very, very long time. I joined in 2011 as an experienced hire into our payroll team, would you believe it? And I moved into the wonderful world of early careers in 2014. So, yep, I am celebrating my 10th year at RSM and within early careers as well this year, which is fab. So what does my role mean? What do we do? So I run a team of I think there's about 23 of us now. And what we look after is everything from engaging with partners like targetjobs, all the way through to effectively offering a candidate when successful after the process, which I'll go through in a couple of slides' time as well. A little bit more about me personally. So I'm a massive football fan, massive sports fan in general, and also love a gig, love a concert. Usually go to around 30 festivals or gigs a year as well, and an avid gym goer when I get the time to slot that in, all about balance and all that good stuff as well. Okay, so RSM, who are we and what do we do? So RSM is a professional services firm. We have, there's some of you may not be aware, but there are sort of a tiered, I suppose, version of accountancy companies within the UK, and we sit within the mid-tier of that table, I suppose, as well. And I've just popped on there what our vision is from a business strategy perspective. So we are definitely humbled in where we are in the market, and there's a couple of reasons, why we are where we are in terms of our clients and the work that we do for our clients as well. So Shannon just mentioned in her introduction around the different service lines that we offer at RSM. This is a really quick snapshot of those. So I won't read the slide to you. So we are constructed of audit, tax and consulting. Some of you may be aware of what these different business lines do, but others that don't, please feel free to read the slides that are on there as well. And if you need any further information, there's a whole host of info on our website as well regarding the different services. As Shannon mentioned, she sits in our accounting and business advisory department, which is sat under consulting as a whole. And consulting actually has quite a large range of departments within there. And what I always say is, regardless of your backgrounds, what your interests are, there is definitely something that will hopefully pique your interest in terms of the roles that we offer at RSM under these 3 service lines as well. So within the UK, this is what we look like. So we've grown significantly in the last sort of 3 to 4 years. As you can see, the volume of people that we have within the UK, and also we are in I think we've got about 30 locations now up and down the country. So those include big places like Manchester, London, Birmingham, those sorts of locations, but also we're still very regional in a business as well. So we do have offices in places such as Stoke, Guildford, Gatwick, Aberdeen. So yeah, really do stretch up and down the country. And I think as mentioned, that really resonates with our client base as well. We are definitely not London focused. We're probably the switch of that, which means that there's a whole host of diverse clients that we're able to work on as well within those different streams. In terms of the growth as well, I'll just touch on that slightly. So from a recruitment perspective for early talent, when I joined the firm way back when and moved into early careers, we were recruiting around 200 students nationally into those service lines. Today, we are looking anywhere between sort of 800 and 900 people coming in into graduate roles, school leaver roles, and placement roles as well. So the growth's been huge, and that continued through COVID and is still continuing to date as well. Just wanted to share our ethos, I suppose, and our values. So those are on screen at the moment. And this really is the backbone of our business. Whether you're talking to a client, whether you're talking to a peer or a colleague, these are the 5 core I guess cultural pillars that we work towards on a day-to-day basis, and I think they're all extremely important within their own right. So again, just have a quick read around what those are, and I think, and hopefully Shannon will talk about this when we have a chat with her in a little while as well. But this definitely makes the culture at RSM a big reason why people are here, why people join us, and why people stay. Especially from a personal perspective, I have been with the firm for a very long time, and I think because we operate within these 5 pillars, that has been a core reason why I'm still here and definitely part of the furniture as well, and just makes it a really nice place to work, to be honest, also. So I know there'll be a whole host of different people on this today. So, is professional services for me? What is accountancy? Is it something that I might be interested in? And I love putting this slide up when I do anything around sort of these conversations that we do, just because it's probably a little bit of myth busting, really. I think, we still have very sort of stereotypes within accountancy of grey suits, spreadsheets, and those sorts of associations. So we are trying to break that mold all the time. So just wanted to pull a couple of one of these out, basically. So I think, and again, I hope Shannon will be able to reiterate these points. So I think, being good with numbers is, helpful. And it also depends on what service line you go into. So, I think, as mentioned before, there's a whole host of opportunities at RSM. Some of them, being good with numbers will really help and, aid your work. And then others are less so number orientated as well. So I think that's probably a common misconception that people make with accountancy and professional services. Another one I wanted to just really quickly draw on as well is just the different sorts of people that you'll meet. So on a day-to-day basis, you'll be speaking to your fellow colleagues, people that probably joined you on the same day, partners in the business, so very senior members of the business, but then also clients as well. So it's a great way to meet and interact with lots and lots of different people from different backgrounds, which is a big part of the job, and especially for myself, the main reason why I turn up every day as well, because sort of no day's the same, so that really keeps you on your toes as well. So just wanted to draw that one out. We will discuss this later with Shannon. When you join RSM, we will fully fund a professional qualification for you. This will be dependent on service line that you join us in. So the professional qualifications, we're not going to sugarcoat that. It is very challenging at times. It's a lot of work, a lot of time. You're working full time and also studying. But one of the key messages that I'm hoping that you'll take away from today is actually that's really worth it. And generally speaking, professional qualifications will run for about 3 years. And in the grand scheme of life, to get a really solid foundation in your career doesn't really sound that bad when you put it into that perspective as well. Fab. So just wanted to run through our application process with you all as well, just to give you a bit of an insight in terms of what we look for at RSM. So we operate a strengths-based recruitment process. Some of you may be familiar with that. Some of you may not be. So what does that mean? So we look for potential rather than experience. We know that, the majority of people who are 18, 21, won't have a rammed CV with lots of experience. You might have, the occasional volunteering or, Saturday job, whatever you may have been able to obtain. But what we're really looking for is whether you suit RSM and if RSM suits you as well, and that actually will be setting you up to succeed when you join us on a graduate scheme as well. So within our strengths assessments, we have a framework in the background, which basically has attributes of what that individual may own. So things like teamwork, good communication skills, resilience, those sorts of things that I'm sure you've heard, if you've joined some of these webinars in the past as well. So our process is starts with an online application. That is very straightforward. It is just around sort of your personal information, and if you have any jobs and stuff like that. But we would never screen out on things like that at that stage either. And then going on to the second part of the process, that is our online assessment. So this is a web-based assessment, which is I suppose looks at potential scenarios that you may get when if you were working at RSM, and it will just align with one of those strengths that I mentioned a little bit earlier as well. That takes around 45 minutes of your time. It isn't timed, so you can take an hour and a half if you want, or you could do it in 20 minutes. And obviously that will depend on you as an individual. And then the next stage, if successful at the online assessment, is our job simulation. So this is service line dependent. So obviously on a couple of slides before, we had those 3 different streams. And again, this will be presenting you with specific scenarios that you may get within those service lines. There is also a video response element. I can probably see you all sort of going like that while watching this as well. And to be honest, those questions are quite straightforward in terms of what we ask. And I know it makes a lot of people uncomfortable when they're doing that sort of element of video interviews as well. Again, takes around 45 minutes to complete. The only element that is timed is those video responses. and then if successful, you'll be invited into an assessment centre. The majority of our assessment centres are online via Teams. We are piloting some in person at the moment, and that may change for 2025 intake as well. So what happens at the assessment centre? So we do a welcome, that's with someone within my team in early careers, and also we get a senior person in the business or a current student to welcome you as well, to see if you've got any questions, and just to ultimately give you a bit of a flavour of what life's like at RSM. You also have some exercises to do with people from the business who will assess you during the assessment centre. So those are just described there. I won't go into those too much detail. And then the day will end with a strengths-based interview. Some of our service lines will have a final stage, or an interview or a conversation, a meet and greet, and that will just be with someone, again, a hiring manager or director or partner. These generally will be face-to-face where we can get people into their preferred location and office. And again, that is just to understand that it's the right decision for you to better understand what we do, see our offices, and just get a sense of what RSM life is like as well. Fabulous. So I will try and be quiet for a second, and I'll just let Shannon come on camera, and I'll minimize those as well. So that was a really, really quick whistle-stop tour to early careers at RSM. But I think the main cause of today is so that we can have a chat with Shannon, so you can really see and feel what life's like at RSM for a graduate. So Shannon, thank you so much for joining today. I've got a couple of questions for you, and please feel free to ask any questions in the questions box as well. I'll try and monitor those between us chatting as well and get through as many as possible during the session. So Shannon, in your introduction, you mentioned that you work in the accounting and business advisory department. Would you be able to give the audience just a little bit of a flavour of what day-to-day life looks like for you in that department and role?
Definitely. I would say that in my daily role, it's a lot of year-end accounts preparation that I work with. So that's more of your compliance side of things, a little bit of management accounting as well, which is really interesting for helping a client sort of get into that advice that they need and sort of trends that they maybe haven't really delved into deeply. But it is quite varied. Sort of the scope of an assignment can be so different depending on which client you're working on, which is something that I find really, really fun within the job. Sometimes you'll be out at a farmer's, sometimes you'll be in a client. I think I've got one booked in next week and I went last year, and it's out on site and it's at a trampoline park. So I always find that quite interesting. Getting to meet loads of different people, sort of seeing as well how different industries are doing. I think that's quite useful. But yeah, that's mainly it for my day-to-day role. Obviously, there's outside of things that you do one-off occasionally, but
Okay.
day-to-day, a lot of accounts prep.
Fab. Okay, yeah. I think obviously you just mentioned a couple of clients that you've worked with as well, which reiterates the point of having quite a diverse client base. And I think, yeah, that variety is definitely a draw, isn't it, for our current graduates and just generally people that are in RSM as well. Fab, thank you. Cool. So next up is just around hybrid working. You said you were based in the Newcastle office. What does that look like for you on a weekly basis as well?
Yeah, so I'm based in the Newcastle office, but I actually live in Durham, so I commute up to Newcastle. Normally I get the train, it's about 10 minutes, and then I'm in the office 3 days a week at the moment. and then working from home 2 days. What I do quite like with RSM is the flexibility. Sort of, it's not a set 3 days. I get to choose when's most convenient for me. So I've got a dog, so that's quite useful. Trying to make sure that with my partner we rotate so that one of us is at home with him, so that he's not on his own for long periods of time. And I suppose for one-off events, it's quite useful. I know one of my colleagues was in today because she needed the gas man to come out, so she was able to choose today to work from home. So that's always quite useful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that varies, doesn't it, between different departments as well. And also, I guess if you're out on client sites, then can't do
Yeah,
that from home. You need to go. So yeah,
sadly
it
not.
would yeah, week on week, I'm sure looks very different. Fab. Okay, so you joined in August 2022, is that right?
hmm
Yes, cool. Um, so talk to me around, when you joined, you would have been part of quite a large cohort of students
hmm
that came into RSM. So how do you work with, I suppose specifically the Newcastle cohort that joined in the same intake to you?
Yeah, so it's quite nice joining with a few people. You're not the new one in the office. There's a few of you, so you can sort of find your feet all together. Um, I'd say within my department specifically, I joined at the same time as a school leaver, and it was great joining with him so we could work collaboratively. And you've got all this new software, all these new things to learn. It was really nice to sort of bounce back and forth off of each other. And I think for me as well, I think there were about 8 of us that joined. A couple of them were placement students, so sadly they're off back at uni for one more year, but hopefully I'll be seeing them again in Newcastle next year. Well, this August when they start
Mhm.
again. Um, but what is helpful across office, obviously not everyone joined in the same department. So I've got a few people in the same cohort who are working in tax, in audit, but they're studying towards the same qualification as me. So what's quite nice is when you go to a college course, you've got a friendly face, and not only that, it's helpful for revision sessions when you're with each other. You can sort of meet up, you can have a lunchtime, and I think that really helps feel a bit more supported with each other.
Amazing. Which is a great segue to talk about the professional qualification that you're studying towards, Shannon. So yeah, if you can just give a bit more detail
Mm-hmm.
around your professional qualification and how you found studying towards that as well.
Mm-hmm. So I'm studying towards the ACA qualification. I mean, as Farah mentioned, there's a few different variations depending on your service line. Um, so far, I've found it quite enjoyable. It's definitely been a challenge, but the content is quite interesting, and it's quite varied. You see, sort of, there are some things that are quite related to your day-to-day role, but then you also get an insight into different areas that you might not have thought about. So, say you get modules on audit, which is something that I don't do a lot of, but it's quite interesting. Oh, is this something that I would enjoy? I've got a bit more of an interest in it. Um, I also think the content that is more specific to my role has helped really deepen my knowledge and understanding, which has definitely helped when I've come across more complex clients, we'll say. Um, but in general, it has been enjoyable. Definitely a lot of hard work, but I'm hoping will be worth it in the end.
It will, 100%. Thank you. Cool. Okay. So we have had quite a few questions coming in, so I can see that. So thank you very much. We will get to you in a second. So please do feel free to keep populating those questions as we're chatting. Um, so from a personal perspective, then Shannon, what do you feel has been, I guess, the most challenging since you joined us in 2022?
I would say, as with any new job, it's sometimes quite challenging coming in and joining a new team of people. But I would
Mm,
say I've been quite lucky. The team was really friendly and really welcoming. So that definitely helped. They sort of made the effort to go out for nice lunches when we first all joined. to do sort of events outside of work so everyone gets to know each other a bit better. But outside of that, I would say as well, a challenge has been the studying. As much as it's enjoyable, as much as it sort of strengthens your role, it is difficult sort of keeping, often when you've come out of university, trying to keep that momentum up. You think, oh, I've got a job, I can sort of relax, it's not going to be so much study, but trying to push through just the last couple of years of it just to make sure that you've set yourself up really well.
Okay, brill. And actually, I suppose following on to that, because I think we've mentioned it is quite challenging to work full time and study a few times already. How do you manage your time around that, and what sort of support do you get as well from RSM for your studying?
Mm-hmm. I would say for managing sort of the balance between work and study is trying to be quite strict with the boundaries. And I think RSM have been really supportive, especially in your team. And your managers will say, sort of, I know you're on college. I'm not going to expect you to do any work. It can wait. Even if you're still on your Teams, on your Outlook, I'm not expecting you to respond to emails. I'm not expecting you to respond while you're focusing on the study. So I think that's really helped me, the support to sort of just give it my full attention. I think as well, I always like to have the mantra of little and often. Just keep cracking away, a bit of revision, a bit of studying, even when you're tired after a day of work. Half an hour is better than not picking up the book at all, is what I try and get through just to keep going. And I think as well, I'm also a bit more of a morning person. So, as you mentioned, a bit of a hybrid role. On the days that I'm working from home, I often think, well, I'll get up at the same time as I would if I had to get up and commute, but I'll spend, say, the extra hour in the morning doing a bit of revision, and then I've got the evening to myself at least.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And I'm with you on a morning person as well. Fab, thank you. So I sort of talked over the values and a bit of the culture previously as well. So how have you found, being a new graduate into RSM from a culture perspective? And I know you've mentioned a couple of things about lunches and stuff like that. And is there anything within your office or service line that you do from a social perspective as well?
Mm-hmm. I do think at RSM, the culture is really people focused. You can tell it straight from the moment you start. There's loads of support. I mean, obviously, the early careers team are great when you first start, and you've got a whole host of training teams who really make you feel supported. I also think there's quite a good work-life balance, which can be a little bit uncommon with professional services firms. You can sort of be expected to work lots of overtime, loads of hours, whereas I feel like the boundaries are quite good with the work-life balance at RSM. I think socially we've got great opportunities, definitely in the Newcastle office, getting to know our team and the rest of our colleagues sort of in a wider perspective. Since I've joined, I'm actually part of the social committee in Newcastle. So that's quite rewarding, getting to help organise and choose sort of venues for each event. Typically, we have quarterly drinks and food. So we're looking to get our next one set up actually at the end of this month. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Wicked. Yeah, I'm part of the social committee in the Birmingham office as well, Shannon. So,
Very nice.
yeah, it is a nice little addition to your everyday role, isn't it? To bring people together and, yeah, get to know one another a little bit better as well. And I think that's really important, especially with hybrid working. Historically, you'd be in the office every day. I remember knowing every single person that was in the Birmingham office. And that definitely isn't the case anymore because people come in different days and obviously do different work patterns and hybrid working as well. So I think that social side's really, really important to make you feel part of, the wider business as well, I suppose. Fab. Okay. I think this question may have been asked actually in here as well. Let me just have a quick little peek. Bear with. Yeah. So we've had a question in the chat around what's your favourite part of working with RSM,
Mhm.
and I'll also add in around if you've got any advice for current graduates who are looking to apply to a grad role. How did you find that process as well
Mhm.
yourself?
Um, I know it's sort of probably been mentioned before, but I would say my favourite part of working at RSM is the team. I really like the people I work with. When I do pop into the office, it's lovely, it's welcoming. It's nice to have a natter, to bond, and also the support that they offer you when you're first starting and finding your feet. I didn't really have much of a background in accounting. I mean, I did a maths degree, so I had a bit of sort of numbers background, but I didn't even know what a debit and a credit were when I started. So it was really useful to have that support network. I would say the advice I'd give is, yeah, maybe don't shut yourself off from any role because you think maybe you've not got the right background, because you will be able to access a whole host of training to support you to bring you into the specifics of a role. Um, I'd also say, I know there's sort of time limits and things like that, but you do have those 5 days, say, between getting it. Try and make sure that you're choosing a time when you can give it your full attention and you're in the right headspace. Don't just say, oh, I need to get through this, do loads of them. I know you're probably applying to a few, so you might have quite a long list, but it is important that if you want the role, if you're passionate, that you give it that respect and attention that it deserves.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think actually this does hinge on to some of the questions that have come in as well, probably directed more towards myself. So we've had a question around recruitment process, the same for interns. No, so the process is shortened slightly for our internships. You do still have to do the first stage online assessment, but then you'll either come straight into a assessment centre or an interview as well. So I think that was that question there. Um, and the reason why we get you to do the sort of front stage element is that if you join us on an internship and you love it, we love having you here. We would potentially look for offering you a graduate role as well. So that's the reason around why we operate in that way for internships. Um, in terms of intakes, so I'll quickly take that one. So we generally run intakes each year in January, April and August. So August, as Shannon joined, is the largest of our intakes. January, we take around 100 to 150, and April is much smaller than that as well. So that we take around 25 to 50, depending, for April. So in terms of best time to apply for January 2025, I'm loving the forward planning. That's fantastic. So our roles will normally go live towards the end of August or the start of September, for the following year's intakes, if that makes sense. So if you are looking generally for roles, obviously not just with ourselves, do keep going on to those employers that you want to pop your application in with from late August, all the way through really to the start of October. RSM do open our vacancies quite early within the recruitment cycle. So yeah, be in it to win it, as they say, and get your application in as soon as that opens as well. So had a question around if you start a 3-year program in one city, would you be able to move? So generally speaking, no. We would like you to remain within the location that you've preferenced in your application form. And that is because you will harness those relationships, obviously, that Shannon's mentioned within the team, within that office. However, the mobility, post qualification is huge. We get lots of people moving the offices. We also do international secondments as well. So yeah, it might be that actually you go overseas to work for RSM in another location abroad. So the possibilities are endless, but we do try to retain you in that location for those 3 years at least, get that professional qualification under your belt, and then obviously you can see what opportunities within RSM lie ahead for you as well. Just making my way through. How much would you say you are studying outside of your working hours? I think that one's for you.
Yeah. Obviously, you're not studying every single day of the year. It sort of bunches a little bit. The certificate ones are a bit more spread out because you can sort of take those on demand. Within the ACA, there's 3 levels, so certificate, professional, and advanced. There's 6 exams in each of the first 2, and then 3 in the final one. The way that it works is the certificate ones, as I said, you can take on demand, but once you get up to professional and advanced, there are specific sittings that are determined by the exam board. So yeah, my next ones now aren't until November. My last ones are in December, so I've got a little bit of a break between studying until the talk course starts then. But when you're in the thick of it, I would say maybe 8-ish hours outside of working hours each week, maybe an hour or 45 minutes of an evening, and then a couple of hours on the weekend. That might ramp up a little bit more as you get closer to it. But typically within your sort of college courses, right before the exam, you get a bit of time off for a revision course. So that's quite helpful. You're not in work, so to speak. And I normally try to take it that I might take a day holiday if there's one day in between. I think I'm not going into work the day before an exam. But
yeah, you need that headspace.
definitely. So
Okay.
I wouldn't say so much so that you can't have a life outside of studying and work, but
Yeah.
definitely you should give it a good chance.
Absolutely, and I think it's that again. I mentioned it earlier, but it's putting that graft in, isn't it, to set you up with an amazing foundation for your career. These professional qualifications are internationally recognised, so you really are putting the blocks in place for hopefully a fab career in the future as well. So always good to keep remembering that when you're doing the hard work, Shannon, I suppose. Fab. Okay, next one is positions available in technology graduates and around the development within RSM as well. So we do have technology roles. So I suppose there's 2 things to that. We don't specifically look at degrees, as Shannon mentioned earlier as well within her cohort. So we would, doesn't matter what you've studied for at university, you would be open to apply to all of our roles. But we do have specific technology roles as well. And we've launched the first cohort of our digital careers as well. So if that's of interest, please do have a look at our website. We've got a few roles open within that space. And then I guess within the development side, and Shannon, hopefully you can chime in on that as well. So we do have an amazing, I'm going to say that, but we have an amazing internal talent development team. And we have a bespoke framework for our students to develop them within their soft skills as well. Obviously, we've spoken a lot around the professional qualification, but also understand the importance of gaining confidence in presentation skills, business communication, personal brand, those sorts of things as well. So, Shannon, I don't know whether you've got anything to add in terms of your
Yeah.
experience attending those courses as well.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, drawing back the curtain, they're called the Evolve courses. And I think that's
Yep.
such an excellent name because it really does help you sort of evolve your outlook on these soft skills. And sometimes you think, oh, do I need it? I'll develop them on the job, I'll do this. But it is nice having that specific time and the framework to really sort of hone these skills, sort of develop things that maybe don't fall into your day-to-day role. And the thing is, they might not fall into your day-to-day role yet, but hopefully as your career progresses, you will need that background of those skills. So I really enjoy the Evolve course. Actually, they're really useful.
Yeah, they are fab, aren't they? Cool. And then just scrolling through, so internships, we've had a couple of questions around if they're still open. They've been extremely popular. So some of them will have been removed from the website due to pipelines. So have a look. I think we've still got audit open. I can't remember if we've got anything else, but have a little look on our website if you're interested in internship. You can filter on the sort of role type on our careers website as well if that's of interest. In terms of how long like graduate schemes are and things like that, that will differ. Again, depending on your pathway from a professional qualification perspective. But if you join as a graduate, the majority of pathways is around 3 years, as Shannon's mentioned as well for the ACA. What are your thoughts on a non-financial services graduate wanting to transition into financial industry? So great question, and hopefully we've answered this one. But I suppose we take a stance of if a graduate joins us, we will assume that they would have no knowledge ultimately, and we will help you gain that knowledge through your professional qualification, through obviously the Evolve courses, as Shannon's mentioned, and also just around, learning on the job from your peers, from your managers and things like that as well. Great question around simultaneously applying for roles. So we do ask if you can keep your applications to just one role per intake. What we do, and my team work extremely hard to do this. If you are, if we fill a role and that's the role that you've applied to, we will always try and move you to another vacancy that we've got available for you. That is, a big thing for us. We want to retain as many applications as possible. But yeah, we do say if it's just one role, and then if you want to move, we can do that for you, our side. So hopefully that one answers that one. What skills are most critical for the job? Oh, okay, that's a good question. So Shannon, do you want to take that from your perspective in terms of being
Mhm.
actually in the role, and then I can maybe cover off more from a recruitment
Mhm.
perspective? Yeah, fab.
I would say the things that help me day to day, analytical skills, I think are quite good. I think that'll be across a whole host of service lines. Not particularly that you're brilliant with numbers. I think that can be developed. And with all the softwares that you use, they take a lot of the guesswork out of it now. But being able to know what to do with those numbers once you've got them is quite important, trying to hunt through them. I'd say as well, just a general willingness to learn. You've got to be open-minded. You've got to be, I think, really committed to giving everything your best shot. And I think as well in RSM, there's quite a high, obviously being professional services, there's an emphasis on quality, and I think that's quite important, being quite detail oriented. Just making sure that you take the time to have a bit of pride in your work, no matter what it is that you're doing. Just trying to make sure that everything is at your highest standard. Obviously, there's checks and reviews and things like that. But I think it's important, no matter what position you fall in, to really strive for that quality output.
I think you've pinched everything that I was going to say, to be honest. I think just on the point around, I think there's a big thing around curiosity. So Shannon, you probably got sick of hearing this when you joined, but asking questions and asking them again if you need to. No question is a silly question is our little strap line in induction, and throughout your professional qualifications as well, because I think that's really important in terms of, you mentioned the willingness to learn. The people that you're asking those questions to will have probably been asking the same questions 2 or 3 years ago, because they probably would have joined through a graduate scheme as well. So I think that really helps, doesn't it? Especially in your, probably in your first year or so. And I think just generally as well, we keep speaking about it, and we will always talk about how, challenging it can be to work and study. And I think sometimes having that, I know it's such a buzzword, but having the resilience to bounce back if something doesn't quite go to plan. If you maybe don't get the mark that you thought you might on an exam, or, all sorts of stumbling blocks. Life, unfortunately, isn't always plain sailing, but it's how you develop yourself from learning from that experience. And like I said, bouncing back and, giving it your best shot the next time. And those sorts of things I think are really important as well. And I think just around communication, it's a weird world, isn't it, that we live in, with hybrid working, being on Teams all the time as well to interact with people, but then also being in person. So I think it's just having that adaptability around how you communicate with people, depending on who you are talking to in that instance as well, is really important. Great question. Around, do you get a full-time job after your grad role? And that is 100% yes. So when you join us in a graduate role, that is a permanent contract from sort of day one, as soon as you sign. And then once you've done your professional qualification, we have a whole host of pathways then in terms of that next stage of your career progression, up until partner, really, if that's where you want to go. But I know that seems like a long way off for a lot of people that are obviously in your shoes at the moment, Shannon, as well. And then what else have we got? So many questions. I'm really conscious of time, so apologies if I don't get to them all. So yeah, definitely opportunities internally to move between roles and departments. That happens a lot. And yeah, has done ever since I joined as well. I think for us, we want to retain the best people, and if that means we, pop them into a different department to get their skills set up and get them to experience something different, then that's a win for us. What else have we got? Let me just have a look. Placement opportunities, there isn't any in April, no. Due to obviously the academic year, they would generally always start in August to August. Just obviously they're usually part of your degree. That's in between your second and third year. And yeah, mentioned internships can be converted into a full-time role if you've enjoyed your time with us, and if it's something that you want to explore. We have still got placements open for 2024 for August. If there's any people who are interested in tax, do go and have a look. We definitely have got tax roles open as well. And in different service lines also. But I would say, just because of the time of year, a lot of the vacancies are being filled as well. we've had a couple of questions around international students. So RSM would welcome your application, so do feel free to pop your application in, and we'll review that as a whole once you've submitted. Will you get exam leave? So within internships, you wouldn't be studying towards any professional qualifications during that time. Our internships run between 6 to 12 weeks, depending on service line. So we want to make sure that is rich of really getting into the nitty gritty of the role, and for you to think, actually, this is definitely something I want to get into, and giving you that exposure and experience. So yeah, there wouldn't be any requirements to do any exams or professional qualifications throughout that internship, but we do offer some of those soft skill sessions as well that we've discussed within internships also. Are the roles available specifically for graduates and non-qualified applicants? Again, not sure of your circumstances, but if I would say pop your application in. We also have a whole host of experienced hire roles. And when I say experienced, I mentioned I joined in payroll, and I definitely wasn't experienced at all. So there could be something on that side of the website for you as well. Just rolling through, because I want to get my final question into you, Shannon, because I know you're very excited about it, I'm sure. So a really good one actually around exams and fails in there. We do have an exam policy, and you have multiple attempts at exams ultimately. But if there are certain exams within the ACA that if you are unsuccessful, then unfortunately that would mean exiting from the business. So yeah, good question, and apologies I hadn't covered that one off. Experienced candidates, yeah, so that varies in terms of the recruitment process on our experienced hire side. Very, very different to the world of early careers in terms of recruitment. So that would just, vary between the different roles that we've got available as well. I think I've got through them all, and apologies if I've missed anyone. It's been pinging while we've been talking. So I guess just to close us out as well, Shannon, my final question for you is, in 3 words, how would you describe your career so far at RSM?
I think I would have to say, and I've probably used these all a number of times before for my questions, but the 3 ones that really sum it up for me would have to be rewarding, challenging, and very team oriented.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, that resonates. Thank you. So I've got just one more slide to share with you all. I'll just make this big actually. So we are running an Insight Day, partnered with Target Jobs on the 19th of March in our London office. So if that's something, if you've enjoyed all of the conversation today and you want to find out a little bit more, please feel free to register. There's a QR code on screen now. And come to the event that we're running on the 19th of March. That will be a deeper dive into what we do in those service lines that I've spoken about. I'll be there myself as well to talk around in more detail from an early careers perspective. And we're going to be getting some of our talent development team there for you to do some sessions, some interactive sessions, and walk away with hopefully something that you can really take into your search for a career in the future as well. So yeah, feel free to register and attend that a week on Tuesday, coming around quick. So I think we're at 5 minutes until we are done. So I just want to say thank you so much, Shannon, for joining. It's been really, really insightful, and hopefully the audience as well have found a real insight into your day to day and the sort of work-life balance at RSM. Obviously, those qualifications that you're studying towards as well. So thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
No worries. Thank you for your time, and thanks to everyone for joining.
Fabulous. And yeah, thank you so much all. I hope you've found it beneficial. It's been lovely chatting with you. And hopefully you'll have a fab rest of your Thursday.